Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to say thank you to everybody who commented on my last video. It seemed to really strike a chord with a lot of you. Some of you got a little, a little triggered. Some of you guys enjoyed my earrings, which I like to wear fun earrings a lot of the time, so I was excited that a few of you guys pointed that out with my little vampire teeth earrings. More vampire content coming at some point, I'm sure. You can clock that. Overall, really excited to all of you who have been subscribed to me. I've definitely gotten some new people from my last video, so welcome to the channel. Here we discuss the gray, the gay, and everything in between. Before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. I'm going to be exploring a lot of different content, but I am seeing you, I'm hearing you, the different things and discussion points that you're resonating with that I'm coming out with. And I do want to say that I am a learning, growing, evolving individual as well, especially with like my content. I'm usually pretty introverted and quiet in real life, so this is a great outlet for me to just have a logical, centered commentary about a lot of the things that I deep dive and I think about. So far, this channel has been a great outlet, and I'm just really excited to see where, we're all going to be in a year, where I'm going to be in a year with you guys. So feel free to, comment, say your things. I really enjoy hearing things from different perspectives, and being a writer and just being a creative person in general, I know that I'm not the end-all be-all disclaimer. I guess we can go into like a little mini disclaimer here, but all the things in my videos are my own opinion. It is not a place to bully people or go and harass somebody. Anybody that I mention in my videos, it's not them specifically that I am pointing out or trying to isolate in some way. It is really just a way to discuss these issues in the macro and the implications that they have. So I just wanted to say that, get that out of the way, and make that very clear that I don't condone any kind of like harassment. Everything here, again, is from a commentary and opinion perspective. So it really is just what's on my mind, what's on my heart at the moment, and how we can be better with this information and the different things that a lot of us are wrestling with mentally. It is no secret right now that we're all having a difficult time, most of us anyway, and hopefully this is just a little escape for you guys to just divulge into some media, some pontifications, some points of view that you may not have considered before. So if I'm able to do that for you, I am really grateful. And of course, like I said, I'm open to feedback, so feel free to drop in the comments below what you would like me to cover in terms of topics and discussion points. Like I said again, feel free to subscribe. I would love it if you'd share the video as well, and feel free to, tag me on Instagram or anything. Same handle as my YouTube name, so Shelby Cat Creates. All that said, now that we've done the housekeeping, let's go ahead and get into it. A lot of my videos are always going to center back and revolve around this overarching topic of what it means to be mindful, not only as an alternative person, but living mindfully and really rejecting a lot of the values and capitalistic, oligarchical, gross mindsets that we've been really brainwashed and indoctrinated to believe, right? It's really frustrating because there is this overconsumption content and lifestyle that we're encouraged to follow, to fill this void that we have, which really should be from community and from mutual aid and from finding ourselves in our hobbies and each other in, again, community and family and taking care of those around you. We're told by capitalism that we have to fill that void somehow, right? So change all your dustpans and make them all aesthetic, make them all the same color, make sure everything matches. And the thing is, people can say, sad beige moms are the only people that are subject to this, but that is categorically false. We're seeing this across the board, and that's just honestly, with the globalization of our society, there's a lot of different reasons as to why that's happening, but it is a little bit of a mental dissonance that I'm feeling the more I've thought about it, that we are in this overconsumption society, but particularly in alternative spaces, which found their home and really got their footing from a lot of DIY and from a lot of things that don't encourage overconsumption. It was, if you can't find something that you like, go to the thrift store and diet black. That was, a big thing. It still is with a lot of crowds. And I myself, my own admission, have been super guilty about falling into the cycles of I need to get this for my wardrobe to be complete. Oh, you fall into this worried thinking that you're not goth enough unless you have demonia boots. Oh no, new rocks are the ones that you have to have. And it's that's never what it was about. This movement is primarily about the music, first and foremost over anything else, despite what discussion points and other splinter discussions that we have. But the music kind of fuels the movement, fuels the music, because music has lyrics and there's inspiration for the music, and a lot of those things come from people's opinions and ideologies. So that's why, for me, they're very interconnected. But a part of how we consume clothing, and that being such a contributor to climate change in particular, is a problem. And it's interesting to bring it up when you have, Shein hauls. And particularly, I want to spotlight something and read an article with you guys about something that was really eye-opening to me that I had in my own personal experience. And I'm seeing now there's like a ripple effect with it. What I mean by that is, like, over the last holiday, my fiance and I were trying to get rid of, clothes, furniture, just different things, kind of purge a lot of our stuff so that we could move in together. Growing up, being a 90s kid, I never had to worry about like thrift stores being full or there being too much. We got turned away by one or two, I think, thrift stores basically saying, oh no, we're full. That just flabbergasted me because those stores are usually seeking donations, right? Like, I always had the mindset from like Goodwills and, well, screw Salvation Army, do not give them your money. They suck and they're anti-gay. You don't think of thrift stores as being like overly full and inundated, at least not until recently, in my opinion. I didn't really take stock and notice this. There have been a lot of creators talking about this, like I know Drama Queen's one of them, and there's a few others who have mentioned that these thrift stores are full of crap. There are like restrictions happening now because people are just donating these clothes at such a fast rate. There's such a rapidity to our consumption life cycle. So we'll have a piece of clothing, and because there's so many micro trends on TikTok and there's other like cottagecore or Y2K core or whatever it is, which those are aesthetics, not movements based in fashion or music. These are literally just like dark academia, Y2K. These are all examples of aesthetics and looks that are indicative of a time period or of a specific like mood board, really. You don't expect like the churn of these clothes to be so incredibly fast, and it surprised me and happened in my own life. And I wanted to bring that up particularly because of the LA wildfires that happened earlier this year. I saw an article, and I want to read it with you, about the problems that are coming from this overconsumption and these excessive clothing hauls and these clothing, like, what are the consequences of these clothing hauls? What are the consequences of this on a real world scale, right? You think, well, I just need a sweet treat, or I just need to treat myself to these clothes. And certainly there is nuance to be had in these conversations. I'm not saying blanket statement that fashion should be, demonized, or fast fashion should be demonized. There are a lot of like gray areas in this. Remember the gray, the gay, and everything in between. Delving into the gray, I'm very aware that for, a lot of plus size people, there aren't many other options that are accessible or even affordable for them to find otherwise. So I do want to acknowledge that, and that's not me shaming or blaming anybody for shopping at these sites. I think we've all, especially women, fallen into this, allure of something that's so affordable and feeling like you're fitting in to the aesthetic that you want for yourself or the appearance that you want for yourself. And what I think a lot of people don't understand, side note, about that is, I don't know if that's an everybody thing. I know for me, like certain colors, or if I wear certain things in the past, it's definitely given me dysphoria. It's definitely made me feel not myself. And if I don't wear things that make me feel like myself, I don't feel right. It makes me feel uncomfortable. That dissonance, that discomfort is really dysphoria, whether that's supposed to be affirming like your gender or otherwise. Like that feeling of not being yourself or being in your clothes or in your skin, I should say, not necessarily like from like a trans perspective, but even just from an appearance perspective, like you want to look like you, right? Eyelashes and nail polish specifically for, even cis women and trans women, those are very affirming things. And if a high femme woman, for example, were to dress in very masculine clothes, like traditionally masculine clothes, that would cause her dysphoria probably, right? Like she would feel out of place, she would feel uncomfortable. That's a side note, and I do just want to acknowledge and put a pin in this, that I understand it's not as easy as this absolute judgment of we can't have fast fashion and it should never exist. And I just don't think that's realistic in our society for a lot of reasons. And obviously for all the different, bigger bodies out there, plus size people, I acknowledge that it's not that easy and there's more to it than that. All that to say that there are a lot of implications and problems that are arising more so not even on an individual scale or a community scale, but on a global scale of what's the cost of this overconsumption. So I'm going to read to you guys. So this article is by Sarah Kent and Liz Flora. Fire-stricken LA is swamped with clothing donations, not all of them wanted. Donation centers around Los Angeles have been overwhelmed by mountains of old clothes, a stark reminder of the excesses of production and consumption that have helped drive the climate crisis and the weather extremes that come with it. I mean, if you see the magnitude of this picture, just seeing the mounds and mounds and mounds of clothes, you always think about that during disasters, right? Like you think, how can I help? What can I do? A lot of times, not that I'm an expert or, again, the end-all be-all source of all of this, but you think to donate food or hygiene products or toiletries or clothes, of course, to help get the right supplies to the right people at the right time. This, though, just sheds a whole new light on the sheer magnitude of our overconsumption, and this just overwhelms me to look at, right? So there are restrictions here, like due to shifting needs at local donation centers, please note that we will only be accepting clothing donations that are new/unused. What not to bring? Personal donations. We're full. That just feels so strange to me to think that donation centers wouldn't accept more clothes. There was just a time growing up that I would never have even thought that would be feasible or possible, because of course there's people that need things. There's people that have less than a lot of people out there. So for it to go to this scale, I just don't think people truly have absorbed or processed, even myself, just how much that is. It's like we don't truly understand what a billion is, like a million versus a billion. There's so many figures out there of how big a billion is, and we still just cannot even wrap our heads around it. Makeshift centers hastily arranged by volunteers in parking lots, businesses, and homes have been flooded with items donated to help the thousands of people in the city who have lost everything. Organizers are asking for basic items, sheets, blankets, toys, and toilet paper, but now they're overwhelmed with used clothes, and they don't want piles of random clothing. Yeah, when crises hit, like I was saying, it's a natural impulse for people to look through their closets for anything that might be of use to people in need. But they have filled those closets with fast fashion as they view as disposable. There's often far more supply than demand, even in the worst disasters. The outpouring of cast-offs reflects a culture of rampant overconsumption that has left wardrobes bulging with unwanted old clothes and served as one contributor to pollution levels that are now driving more intense and more frequent weather extremes, which we're all aware of, right? Like even in the last year, I grew up in Florida, and the magnitude and the sheer force and size of these hurricanes, let me tell you, hurricanes never scared me growing up. Like it was never an issue. Those hurricanes from Irma back in 2017 to now, even Milton and Helene, like those are abnormally large. They are not normal, and don't let anybody tell you that the rate of these disasters is normal. I have even moved, here to the West Coast, and the first year I moved here, there were a lot of fires in California that drifted up here, but even so, not to the degree that we're seeing. So there are several systemic issues. The clothing is low quality, fast fashion that lacks longevity or utility for recipients in need. So they received over 10,000 pounds of donated clothes, which is wild to think about. Like, a lot of people quickly learned that without guidance, people were using the crisis to offload overflowing closets of stuff that they just wanted to get rid of. Which worn clothes that you wouldn't want to give people. You want to give people things that have utility, that have substance to them. And a lot of times these fast fashion brands use thin, cheap fabric because they're doing it at scale, right? I always say good, fast, cheap. You can only pick two. And a lot of times these companies, they choose fast and they choose cheap, right? But you're sacrificing good. So clothing that you would normally buy at a more expensive boutique shop, let's say, that's, handmade by someone local, is going to have more longevity. It will also cost more. And so that's just bubbling up this whole concept of it's expensive to be poor too, right? Like I think I remember Bernie Sanders saying that, because if you're poor, you can only afford to buy a cheap pair of boots, but those boots wear out faster and then you have to buy another pair of boots. Or instead of buying your insurance all at once for the 6 months where you would maybe save $200, now if you pay monthly, you get penalized for that and you have to pay more. The monthly fee is higher over the accumulation of 6 months versus if you had the money and you had the means to pay for it up front for the whole 6 months. So you had to be very specific now in the types of things that she was wanting for donations. Closet empty and donations create waste of both products and volunteers' time. Clothes that arrive in hodgepodge of sizes and conditions are a logistical nightmare, requiring time to sort and process. Often the donations simply aren't fit for purpose and themselves simply end up in the trash. And that's the unfortunate thing. You think you're doing a good thing when you donate clothes, but a lot of times they end up in a landfill. Now, how can we remediate this? What are we to do with this information, right? It's not like we can just yell at all these companies and tell them to stop producing. That's just not realistic in the very interconnected, woven society that we have, unfortunately. What we can do is reuse clothing as best we can, find a new purpose for it. Let me know if you guys would be interested. I am looking to do that in my closet. I'm going to try to find ways to either repurpose fabric into like a quilt or cut up shirts so that they have a different kind of life to them, even if it's like a cut that I don't like, or maybe I'll just dye them a dark color if I don't like them anymore. Just trying to find ways to truly be unique, right? It just feels very ironic, I guess, that you just kind of get stuck in this circular path that to be unique, you're trying to buy all these different things, but we can all be unique. And a lot of times when you look back in the 80s and the 70s, there weren't manufacturers, creating clothing to the scale. Everybody had to be unique. They had to kind of make their own DIY things, or I don't know, take a chain from a purse and make it into a belt. But I've been considering doing a little bit of that in my closet. So if you guys want any tips on that, or if you want, I'm going to do a video about smaller alternative brands that I think do stand for better values and their clothing will last longer. So let me know if you're interested in that, and I can certainly put that together. It is something that I want to do, and just to grab a few pieces and try them on and show you why I prefer to buy less at this juncture and this point in my life, which I don't know, maybe when you're more in your 20s and teens, stuff matters more to you. And I find as I've gotten older, like possessions more just stress me out than they help, with some exceptions, of course, like everybody has their thing. But going back to, overconsumption, halfway across the world, this is a familiar picture for Liz Ricketts, co-founder and executive director of the Or Foundation, a nonprofit that works on Ghana's Contamonto market, a massive secondhand trading hub where many discarded clothes from the US and Europe ultimately end up. To everyone touching pit-stained t-shirts and unwashed undergarments, I want to welcome you into the daily reality faced by every human laboring in the secondhand supply chain. If it wasn't already clear, the situation should make it obvious that the global north has too much clothing and that this clothing is considered disposable. Contamonto, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, is currently grappling with its own disaster response after much of the market burned to the ground early in the new year. Advocates like Ricketts have long sounded the alarm that many of the clothes that end up in Contamonto are little more than waste, in too poor condition or too low value to be suitable for resale. Exactly how many of the garments that move through the market ultimately end up as trash is a point of heated debate, but the entire secondhand clothing market is creaking under the strain of growing volumes of increasingly low-value fashion waste, the inevitable outcome of the rise of cheap fast fashion and trend cycles turbocharged by social media. This crisis is just one example of the broader challenges we face with overproduction, overconsumption, and insufficient infrastructure to handle clothing waste responsibly. Until we address these systemic issues, we'll continue to see similar situations arise. Now, I obviously encourage you guys to support journalists, support sites that give valuable information. This is just a bigger problem I wanted to bring up, and I felt like this article did a pretty good job of explaining that. Now I want to just show a few videos and have them on in the background so that you can see what I mean with overconsumption. And like I said, on the surface level, I understand the need to have clothes and feel like you are giving yourself something nice. I'm not saying we shouldn't ever do those things, but looking at the degree of the disasters that we're having and the problems and the ripple effects that it's having on the society, on the earth as a whole, what is that saying? What is that saying about how much we're consuming and the consequences to those actions as a collective? I see, these kinds of hauls and you don't need this much clothes. Nobody needs this many clothes. Like I said, I am guilty of this. I'm guilty of, getting a t-shirt when I go to a new place to have as a little souvenir, and then we have sentimental value to clothes. And I think as long as you're giving that clothing a home and you're able to reuse it, we have a chance of at least slowing the very real fact that a lot of clothes end up in landfills. And it's a problem. And why are we not addressing it more? Why is there not legislation to try to be more reasonable about the rate and the quickness and just the breakneck speed that we're producing clothing? Yeah, it's just so, look at that box. It's humongous, right? Like, and it's not even what she's saying that's important, right? Like, there's always technicalities and nuance in all of this because, yeah, I think at the beginning she said, her weight fluctuated and she needed new clothes. And let's try to be a little bit more intentional and mindful about and discern, like, do we really need this ultimately? Like, is this going to be a staple in my closet for a long time to come? So this has been on my mind for a little while. Like I said, I've seen a lot of great creators talking about this. Isabella Lanter is another one where she's talked about the Amazon must-haves and the language you use being important around that too. Like, how much is a must have? How much defines a must have? You don't need a little plastic bin of 500 hand sanitizers and makeup remover wipes and all of this stuff either. Do you need the same top in 4 different colors? Do you need like something that you're probably not going to wear? Is it just for a trend that you wanted to try out and then just throw it away? These are all things that I just want to bring to your attention and loop it back to, of course, the alternative community, because we see fashion exploding at a big rate on that front too. We see brands being more mainstream and it makes me feel a little conflicted. It makes me feel happy because the representation is there. But at the same time, what is this saying about the culture of, I don't know, like individuality, right? I think you could argue all day that alternative culture has political roots. Like, I personally think, in my opinion, that's a fact that is not debatable. But for a lot of people, it is debatable. But one thing you truly can't deny being a staple of the alternative culture is individuality and individual expression. And there is a Venn diagram there. There are different facets and foundational pieces that make up what people traditionally feel is alternative, like especially if you're dressing in trad, you have a certain makeup, you have black and white makeup. My point is, how individual are we if everything is mass produced? That's my thesis for, it's not a full thesis, but that is my question overall for where have we gone with the plot? We've lost the plot. We're consuming so much. It's so excessive. There is a point where we cannot continue to have exponential growth, and it's going to be at the cost of our world and our environment. So I invite you to try to find ways, use your clothes into rags, use them to wipe things up, or find ways to repurpose and reuse. Find clothing swaps in your areas. I do one every year in the summer and I absolutely love it. I have so much fun. I always meet people there. You're able to talk fashion. You're able to talk about different things about where this piece came from, and find your clothes maybe have a better home with someone who will actually wear it. And if you don't feel like you've worn something in your closet for a year, it might be time to give it to a friend or family member who could use it. And like I said, I am preaching at myself just as much as I am preaching at everybody else on my little figurative YouTube soapbox here. I hope that this was eye-opening for some people. I hope the article was helpful. Like I said, definitely support journalists. It's as much a point to myself and a takeaway to myself that I wanted to bring up. Stuff is not ultimately going to fill the hole, and we've just been fed this narrative and made brands expand to the point where we think they're our friends. And it's at the end of the day, a brand is an impersonal business venture. It's a company. They slapped pretty colors and nice fonts and things that they know their target audience will resonate with and want to be like. And of course, that's where influencers and celebrities come in to be faces of that brand and make you want to look like them. Oh, if I have this clothing piece, I can be happy because I'll look like her or I'll look like him. And that's just not going to fill the void, guys. I'm afraid to say, not really afraid to say, it won't fill the void for myself or for you. And I just highly advise us to rethink and reimagine a world where we don't need all of this stuff. We need each other. We need community gardens. We need places where we can gather together and have theater in the park and talk about books and our dreams and give into our hobbies again and fall in love with ourselves and the people we love most in our lives and just find that little sense of community again. I'm definitely looking forward to doing that a little bit more this year. I have been out of the concert world for a while. I went to a lot of concerts last year, or was it 2023? I went to a lot of concerts, and it really just makes me happy to be in live music and to experience that moment. It's not something you can replace or anybody can take away from you once you have that memory. This is like the most millennial thing I'll ever say in my life, but it's true. I'm seeing Birthday Massacre in a few weeks, and I've been a huge fan of them since I was in high school. So they've been on my bucket list to see for a long time. So drop in the comments, I don't know, a concert you're excited to go to or a band you're excited to see, or maybe there's on your bucket list and you haven't gotten to it yet, but you will. So I've known you've gotten to the end of this video. That's really all I have to discuss with you guys today. Like I said, this is not meant, the people featured on this video, the ones that I have playing, are not meant to, shame them or disparage them. And I highly recommend, please do not go into any comment sections and pick on these people. We don't know them. I don't know them. I don't hate them. I don't have any kind of issue with them. I think it's just a great case study of what this culture perpetuates. It perpetuates buying something else, filling the void, getting this new piece that may or may not even be something that you love for the rest of your life. So I don't know, guys, it's a lot. And this is something that's been on my mind for a while, and I just haven't really had a little rant about it. So thank you for hanging out with me today. I would love for you to subscribe, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do more content. I'm trying to find my groove. I'm hoping to decorate my background soon, but I do appreciate everybody going on this journey with me. I hope people know that I'm not trying to be, I don't know, the goth police or the alternative police when I bring up these subjects. I think they're just really important to talk about. I think they're really important to bring up and help us recenter ourselves and our values and what matters most to us. I want to, find the community of people who hold the values of, being against the status quo. And it is very interesting when people in the comments were, they were positing that because people got more rights over the last decade, that we're more left-wing than we are right-wing. And it makes me sad because that's an extremely misinformed take to have and a point of view. And again, you're allowed to have your own opinions. I'm not saying you can't have those or you can't dress however you want. I think things mean something though. And in this age of anti-intellectualism and people just not thinking critically, I want my channel to be like a lighthouse for critical thought and just interesting, insightful debate. I don't think I'll always be perfect in all of my opinions. I think everybody has biases and issues, but I do hope that it gives you something to think about and it helps you be a little bit more critical of what you're consuming online, myself included. I invite you to question everything as a true literature major that I am. Thank you guys. I appreciate you sticking with me as I'm getting over the hurdle of just start. A lot of creators give the advice that your first 100 videos are going to be your shittiest ones. So I'm looking forward to looking back on these and kind of going, ugh, why did I do that? Because that's growth, right? And we don't want to be the same. I will impart a literature quote on you before I go. It's from a book I read in high school called Ceremony. And I'm going to paraphrase the quote, but I'll put the quote on the screen here. But the quote is akin to, things that don't change and grow are dead things. So I encourage you, even if you do have a penchant for the macabre like myself and do find yourself in goth spaces, I do invite you to find ways to grow and question things, expand your mind, read books, especially banned books. Definitely read banned books. I'd love to do a whole thing on banned books if you guys are interested. I've read a lot of them. Like I said, feel free to comment topics you want to see. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!